Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Juju, and welcome back to 1% of Juju podcast, where we teach you the practical steps to live your life like the 1%. You guys already know what time is it. Go ahead and make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. You like the podcast, leave some positive comments. Only positive, though, because the negative ones, I don't need them around here. But today, y'all can see the thumbnail. Y'all can see the title of the video or the title of the podcast. We have a very special guest on our hands. My boy, my personal boy, I played football with him way back in the days, and we were joking about it. This is actually take two. So we're humans. We all make mistakes. I forgot to record when we started the conversation, but we're back. We're at it. We're going to make it great. But my boy, Josh Parks, is here with us. Josh, introduce yourselves to the people, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Brother, thank you for having me on. This is the second time, like you said, so I got to make it a little bit better. But no, man, I really just appreciate, you having me on here. I've been following you for a while. You're obviously inspiring people, growing as a businessman as well, and educating. So that's really dope to see.
Yeah, no, we're gonna try. We had like an actual really dope 30-minute conversation, and then I realized I wasn't recording, and then my camera died. So we have all types of issues here, and I'm not gonna hide it from you guys. I'm human, but we're gonna dive into it. But obviously, I know you. We spent a lot of time playing together. We were talking earlier, and I'm gonna stop saying that because now we got to dive into it. But we came in together in 2014 after going to university. You went out to business ventures, and which we are going to talk about. But tell the people a little bit, like, who is Josh Parks? What is Ghostfit Apparel? What do you do? Introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, man. My name is Josh Parks. I grew up in Minnesota, Chisago Lakes to be specific. It's a very small city, about 45 minutes north of Minneapolis, St. Paul. After high school, I went on and played football at the University of Minnesota. I played there for 1 year. After that, I ended up transferring to the University of St. Thomas. And at St. Thomas, I actually had a professor who taught Love Your Melon, my junior year of college. And it inspired me to start Ghostfit Apparel. And it's been going on a little over 4 years now, and we beat the pandemic. So hopefully we're going to be riding cool now.
Yeah. And when we connected, like before the podcast, one thing that you mentioned that really impressed me is I was kind of under the assumption that you went on to do something in, the corporate world or whatnot, and was doing this ghost fitting on the side. And even when you were in college, I know that that's something that you were into, but you actually, I found out afterwards when we were connecting that right away, right out of school, you just bet on yourself. You went all in, went full time doing that. Can you talk a little bit about, that's a scary thing to do, and obviously, but like what went into that decision and some of your journey there?
And maybe we can get into this, maybe not. But I wasn't doing the best things for myself mentally and physically at that school. I was having a little bit too much fun. And so when I went to the University of St. Thomas, I told myself I'm going to move home. I'm going to commute to school, right? In the bathrooms at school, right? I was really doing, a lot for money. And, when I had an opportunity to start Ghostfit, it was something that came extremely organically, right? So I was passionate about it. It wasn't something that, I said, all right, I just need to start this and make some money from it. Mm-hmm. And so I gave myself 3 years, right? I was a junior when I started it. And I said 1 year after college, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to go find something new. But I was persistent on making sure that it was going to be something that I was going to continue to do well after college. And so I put my head down and continued to work. So was it scary? Obviously, I couldn't predict the future. I couldn't say if I was going to make it or not, but I knew damn well I was going to work as hard as I could to do it.
100%. And I love that, man. Like, because at the end of the day, a lot of people that want to do this business thing, or they want to go into business, they have this great idea that's in their mind, but they're just not willing to kind of take that first step and go about it and just, give themselves a certain timeline. Like, let me actually give myself a year or 2 years or 3 years in your situation and say, I'm going to put it all in, and, whatever happens. The reality is, like, a lot of people expect that instant gratification. And when it doesn't happen after, let's say, like a month or 2 months, they kind of give up on themselves. So I love hearing that from you. But so you spoke about starting with an e-commerce business, and one secret I'm going to spill here, which is going to put you on the hook, is like you're obviously you have plans on starting your own podcast. So if you were planning on dipping out of that, now you're on the hook. Now people are expecting it. So I don't expect you to spill too many secrets here, but if someone wants to start an e-commerce business or has that in mind or has ideas around that, how would they even go about starting that?
All right, can I pause it really quick? I need to plug my computer in. It's about to die.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Cool. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure you got that out so that you can edit it right to
No,
this.
no, for sure. And we might not even edit it because we're real transparent and honest here.
Hey, you just going for it now, huh?
Yeah.
All right, we good to go?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Cool. So in terms of starting an e-commerce company, I think it's three different things. One, and the most important one out of any of these is you got to really enjoy what you're doing, right? You have to. It's so easy nowadays, especially with social media, to start business because it's cool, it's trendy, right? But what you don't see behind that is all the bad parts, all the heartaches, right? And if you create something just because it sounds cool, when the going gets tough, you're gonna quit. And that's with anything. That's not just business. That's just life in general, right? So really find something that you enjoy. That's not just a hobby, but something that you really enjoy doing when it's even tough. Secondly, I would find a platform that supports it, right? So for us, we use Shopify. Basically, what Shopify is, it's an e-commerce platform. It's meant for sales, very user friendly, right? Find something that is easy to navigate for yourself and for your team. Right. I think that's important for success long term. And then third is just hustle, man. Like business isn't for everyone, right? Owning a business isn't for everyone. But if you have hustle, if you can go out on the streets and you can go door to door and sell your product, if you can go on your Instagram, on your Facebook, and scroll through your friends and family and DM them, even though you might feel embarrassed to get 1,000 no's. Like that's really what it takes. It takes that sort of hustle and not being scared to hear no, not being scared to fail, and then just taking ownership of it.
Yeah, no, I do love that because I think that you hit the nail right on the head. It's kind of the trendy thing to do right now, and it's it sounds fun, it sounds cool, everybody wants it, everybody wants that lifestyle, but a lot of people aren't willing to put the work on the back end, right? You only see the people when they start becoming successful. That's when you really start paying attention. So you don't see the like you're saying, the thousands of no's that people get on the back end. But can you then speak a little bit more to the challenges of going in business, and specifically maybe an e-commerce business? And we're going to transition a little bit to, because you transitioned your business a little bit now, if I'm not mistaken, but we're going to get to that a little bit. But can you talk a little bit to the challenges of being in business that you faced, and some of the challenges of e-commerce specifically that may come with that?
Yeah. So first, I'll sort of touch on the challenges that I specifically had. So when I started Ghostfit, we had $800. Like that was it, right? So I really had to bootstrap everything, from marketing to our website to emails to production, every single thing. I made sure that I had my hands in it, and I wasn't really delegating to other people because we didn't have the funds to do that.
Right.
But the good thing about that was that I was able to learn so much about the business, learn so much about the industry, understand how these operations were supposed to be done. And it kind of gave a connectiveness to myself and the business, and it started to create the foundation of what Ghostfit represented. Now in terms of e-commerce, I feel like because we all scroll on our phones every day and you see ads, it's really easy to think, okay, I could just go spend $100 on Facebook and I'll sell all these joggers, all these hoodies. But the reality of it is that there's an entire team behind that. There's an entire funnel behind that. Obviously, I won't get into the specifics of doing those ads, but don't just think that you can throw money and all of a sudden money's going to come back at you. There's a lot of groundwork that has to be done. There's your brand has to represent who that person is, and it has to speak volumes to them. It has to be much more than, just a few dollars going on to Instagram or Facebook. So, I would say that that's probably the most difficult thing because it's so easy to spend ad money. It's so easy to spend any money, obviously, when you're first starting and you're kind of figuring out new things. So, I just say if you can bootstrap it to the extent of, still being able to grow the business, but yeah, I mean that was my biggest challenge is coming up.
I actually want to talk about that a little bit more because, if you look at a lot of people giving advice about business, right? It's okay, well, hire quick, hire before you can afford it, all those different things, and I've heard it all. And that's kind of the approach that I took because I went out and hired and then got caught up in a situation where, somebody just had to leave the business, I guess, so, just their circumstances. And it was something that I had, outsourced to somebody else. And now I was left having to do it, but now I'm left having to learn the whole thing, which, isn't ideal. So what are your thoughts about that? Because I definitely agree with you from a standpoint of like, you should know how to do every single thing in your business before you outsource it to somebody else. But is there such thing as too early to hire? Or if you have the funds, would you just say like, no, just go out and hire as soon as possible? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that you have to look at it from two different perspectives. From the perspective of trying to grow a business authentically and having long-term success with it. I think being able to have your hands in everything right away, I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
main objective because, like you said, it creates a connectivity. Obviously, once you hire, then you understand what position you're trying to hire for,
Yeah.
and you kind of create a vision around what you're looking to become as a company, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just looking to boost a company, get it a lot of sales and then, sell it quick and make some money off of it, obviously you can kind of pump and dump that. You can, put a lot of money into it. You can hire a bunch of people. You can make it look really, glamorous, like you're making a bunch of sales, sell it, make some money off of it. But, speaking on my business and your business, I think it's a lot more personal. I think it's something that we want to do
For
for a long
sure.
time.
Yep.
So I would say definitely understand your business, and the best way to understand your business is doing it.
Man, I love that. That's such good advice because I think that it can be confusing as of like when you get all this advice that is out there, right? It's like, oh well, hire as fast as possible. And now you hear us kind of talking about, oh well, no, don't hire too fast. But actually getting an understanding of like why we may be saying that, because we're not just saying don't hire people, we're just saying before you go out and do that, have a real understanding of like how your business works, and then make sure you do invest in your business because realistically, I'm now doing my editing and things of that nature, but uh, eventually I will want to outsource that, but I want to make sure that I have a clear understanding of what my editing flow looks like, what my, what the vision is and things like that. But no, I love that as far as a piece of advice. Can you talk a little bit about some of the sacrifices you made over the past few years? Because we spoke a few weeks ago and you kind of spoke about some of the things that you had to go through, and you just told us about a few things, like the emailing or messaging, DMing some friends and embarrassing yourself a little bit, not embarrassing yourself, but just like, it might be embarrassing a little bit to DM people that are just going to ignore you or things like that. What are some other sacrifices that you had to make over the past few years in order to grow the business?
Yeah, and I think this is very, it's a perspective, right? Because I don't really
Mm-hmm.
look at them as sacrifices. I look at
Oh.
them as I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to create something that I've had in my mind for a long time. But I understand what you mean by, sacrifices. And
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing would be, time. I mean, that's all we have, right? However you want to break whatever you do during an entire day down, all it comes down to is time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's the biggest thing that you sacrifice or that you lose because if you want to continue to scale and grow your business and learn your business and learn your customers and clients, it's all about investing in yourself, investing in those people into the company. And so you might not be able to go out on a Saturday, you might not be able to get brunch, you might not be able to go out on that date. But if you really enjoy what you do, then like I said, it's not really a sacrifice. It's another game, right? It's it's
Hmm.
it's a it's a Saturday at TCF Bank again, right? Again
Yep.
and again and again. So it really just depends on how you look at it. But it's how are you going to manage your time? How are you going to be most effective with it so that you can continue to grow and not let those outside influences slow you down.
Man, I love how you frame it because it becomes almost to a point where it isn't really a sacrifice. And one quote that I always love to share is that I heard recently is a lot of people sacrifice what they want most for what they want now. And
Mm,
the reality of that is that, for a lot of us, what we really want is, the future, our family to have, whether it's money or just time with our family and things like that, right? So for me, the way I started approaching it is like, yeah, I'm willing to make those sacrifices today and not maybe have a night out or buy this or buy that, in order to make sure. But the real instant gratification for me is like knowing I'm taking care of my future family and knowing those things, that which is what I actually want most, which I'm kind of like loving you sharing that. So no, I appreciate that perspective because it's different when you get to a point where you don't even see those things as sacrifices and you really start understanding why you're doing what you're doing, like why you're doing all those things. It's really, really great. But yeah, overall, do you have any advice maybe for like a small business owner? Because we spoke about you starting, eventually like your podcast and things like that. But the biggest thing I know that you're passionate about is helping small business owners. Like what is one thing that a small business owner should keep in mind or should do, or should know as they go into that journey?
yeah, I think the biggest thing is, and it's really hard to do, but don't allow yourself to compare yourself to someone else, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
I remember when I first started, I was looking at companies like, Alpha Lead and Nike and right, all these big companies. And the thing is when they first started, they weren't Nike and Alpha Lead, right? They
Mm-hmm.
were no-name companies that no one knew about, right? Amazon, Jeff Bezos was in his garage, right, hustling. But like that's the reality of starting a business. And it's super easy with social media to become jaded and think, okay, I'm supposed to be here right now. Okay, I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
there right now. The only place you're supposed to be is in your damn laptop, is in the books, in the, right? Whatever you can do to work your way up to whatever level you want to get to, right?
Yeah.
So basically what I'm saying is have blinders, understand what your goal is and what your mission is, and then just continue to pursue that. Because where Nike was in 20 years after they started, maybe that's what your goal is, but maybe you'll be there in 10, right? Who knows,
Mm,
right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because you're not there and you're not Nike, right?
yeah.
So just understand who you are as an individual and who your company is and wants to represent, and then just focus on that, right? I that's one thing that I really learned this year, and it sounds so simple, but it's focus, right? I'm my mind is always everywhere, right? I think that's why I became a business owner, because I just love these ideas and kind of putting them into place. But one thing I had to understand was ideas are cool, but execution is much better,
Yeah.
right? So focus on a few things, execute that, and then you're going to look back 5 years like, dang, I can't believe where we are now.
Yeah, no, I love that. And have you read the Phil Knight book, The Shoe Dog?
I haven't. No, I have not.
Okay, yeah, no, highly recommend because it talks about a lot of that. Because obviously, especially for young people like us, all we know of Nike is being this big empire, right? But even when I was watching The Last Dance and the Jordan documentary, they were saying that like at the time Jordan came into the league, Nike wasn't, that big. Nike was kind of like a smaller company, and everyone was working with Converse or Adidas, I think at the time, and that's almost impossible for me to imagine. But back then, that was nothing. It was just one guy betting on himself and continuously, making the sacrifices and continuously, believing in himself and what he can do differently and what he can bring to the table. And that's to me the impressive part. So excellent. But I would highly recommend that if you're especially with you being in e-commerce now and in retail. One thing that I want to talk about, I want to talk a little bit more about your business specifically. You know, it's all great to like, this has been very inspiring, I think, for the people to hear just your journey. But can you talk a little bit more about Ghostfit, where it was, you know, where it started and, you know, where it is now?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to put it simple, I started it when I was a junior at the University of St. Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And really what my goal was is I wanted to figure out how to create apparel that you could use for multi-purposes, right? Going to the gym, just lounging in.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, now people know that as athleisure.
Yeah,
It's kind of like it's a known term
my
now.
favorite thing to wear.
Exactly, right. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started, because the way that I looked at it, and this will kind of go into a reason why we transitioned from B2B as well. But the way that I
Mm-hmm.
looked at it was they had Nike, Lululemon, Adidas, right? And for me, I grew up broke. I didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wasn't getting that. Right. And then the alternative was like starter and right. So there was two total opposite, spectrums, right? So there was nothing really in the middle where it was really good quality, but it was at a decent price.
Mm.
So that's kind of where I came into the mix at. And as we started to grow, I had to figure out ways. Okay, we're doing e-commerce now. How can we branch out? How can we make more money, have more revenue streams through this business? And it kind of goes back to the reason why I started the company, is that when it comes to B2B, which is business to business, e-commerce is B2C, so it's us as a business selling to
To the customer.
consumers.
Yep.
Business to business is another business selling to another business, which will in turn, sell to, whoever else they decide to. But
Yep.
anyways, the reason that the opportunity that I saw in business to business was with creating custom apparel for these larger corporations. So what I mean by that is you would have gyms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of gyms use Lululemon or Nike to create their apparel. So they'll buy Lululemon, they'll put their logos onto it, and then they'll sell it to their customers.
Yeah.
Or they'll use a white label shirt, which is a pre-made shirt that doesn't have any logos on it, but it'll be like a bell of canvas. There's a lot of very cheap shirts that businesses will use because it is cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I found that avenue where there was no middle of the road company, right? That you
Yep.
either had to spend a lot and get really good quality, or spend little and the quality was horrible. So I said, why aren't companies doing this? And I started researching, and in the Midwest, no one was doing it at all. So that's kind of how we transitioned, why we transitioned, and it kind of makes us different compared to all of our other competitors.
Man, that's great. At the end of the day, business is just fixing a problem, you know, finding an issue and
It is.
just tapping into it and fixing it, which I love that like you were able to do that. But so how do you go about finding and like I said, I want to make sure I'm respectful of your business and I'm not spilling too many of your secrets here, but how are you finding these businesses to work with? Like is it just, walking into random businesses and giving out your samples and kind of word to mouth from there, or how does it work?
Yeah, so when we first started, I was at the first client that we worked with was Yoakum Strength, and I actually played football with Austin Yoakum at the
Okay.
University of St. Thomas. And then he became the strength coordinator at St. Thomas, but he also had a side business where he would train athletes. And so we started making t-shirts for him. And that's really when I realized, okay, instead of if I have one customer that buys one t-shirt, or I can have one customer that buys 50 t-shirts. I'm like, okay, I see how this can start exponentially, increasing our margins, and two, just increasing our total revenue.
Yeah.
So that was really like the first company that we started working with. And then from there was a few smaller gyms that, like I said, I would walk to, give them samples, things of that nature. But the biggest was just networking, right? The thing about business, which is really unique compared to other industries, is business is about networking and just understanding who people are, right? Because
Mm.
everyone is in the business, quote unquote, of making money, right? So if you can take the connections that you currently have and you can add value to them with whatever product you have.
Yep.
All they have to do is spend money. All they have to do is buy it. And then now you make money. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my next thing. I went through all my contacts and I said, okay, I know that you own a business. Your dad's a business owner, right? There's a reason why you would need apparel. I would reach out to them and say, hey, my name is Josh Sparks. This is what I'm doing. This is what we have to offer. And through that, it just started growing. So like I said, we worked with Austin. We were selling him 10 to 50 t-shirts. And, this past year we worked with 3M, Lifetime Fitness, Anytime Fitness. So it's definitely grown through the network and the constant pursuit of just putting our products out there day in and day out.
Man, that's so great. And this term, I feel like every question is just going to lead to another question now. But when you say networking, I think a lot of people, and especially now, I remember when I started my career, I was a financial advisor and I was just out at networking events every single day. Like I was just like out, happy hour, whatever, wherever I can meet people, essentially, that's what I would do. For you, when you say networking, like how do you go about that? I think a lot of people mention that, and nowadays, especially with COVID, networking has changed a little bit, right? So how do you network? How do you increase your network? Does it just kind of happen organically, or how much is you putting yourself out there, and how do you put yourself out there?
Well, I mean, I think everyone networks, right? I think it's funny, people say I'm on a diet now. It's like, no, you're no matter what you eat, that's your diet. What you mean is that you're trying to lose weight, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So everyone networks. I think the difference between when I say network, it's being intentional, right? Everyone that you talk to, what are your intentions with them, right? You can talk to Bill Gates about an NFL game, or you can talk to Bill Gates about business and how you can potentially work for him or get an internship, right?
Yep.
So really all networking is being intentional. Everyone that whatever it is, right? So for Ghostfit, we sell apparel. Everyone that I know, I can figure out how Ghostfit and my company can help them and how they can help us. So it's about being intentional with those conversations. And as you focus on those conversations with those individuals, people want to help people, right? So, hey, Julian, I have this product. This is what we're trying to do with it, bro. I can't help you out, but I know someone that can, right? So those conversations become kind of funneled into whatever that end goal is. So it's really just about being intentional with what you're trying to speak.
Yeah, man, that is so good, because I think that I struggle with that. And you spoke about, at the beginning, getting a lot of no's and getting a lot of, reaching out to a lot of like your friends, your current network, right? And kind of being like, hey, listen, here's what I'm trying to do. And honestly, coming from a place of like, I'm just really passionate about it. I think that it can help. I know that from the jump, for me, that was really hard, because I was kind of like, well, this is my network. I don't want to just come across as I'm trying to sell them something. But at the same time, like, I really think that this thing can help people, and finding that balance between how do I approach it from a standpoint of like, hey, I'm trying to add value to you, but not, and now that's something that I'm getting better at. But how did you balance that, like right off the bat, like the reaching out to friends and family and your current network, and just being like, hey, here's how I'm trying to add value to you, with everything else?
That's a good question. I have to be honest, like starting out, I didn't know how to structure that, right? And there's even times now that, I look at some of our clients and I'm like, man, should I reach out to them? Like I feel like if they wanted something, they would be telling us right now, right? You don't want to seem too salesy all the time. But I think that you're right. I think coming at it with the right intentions of, instead of, hey, I want to sell you this, I have something that I think can help you. Right. And then another thing that we decided to do is, and obviously with a clothing company, it's a little bit more easy for us, but if I had someone that I said, I think that they'll really like this product, but I don't know how to reach out to them, I would write them a handwritten note, and then I would put a t-shirt in it and say, hey, my name is Josh, or, hey, bro, like this is what I've been working on for the last 6 months. I thought that you would love it. if try it on. If it fits, if you like the feel, I would ask is, can you, post it on Instagram, or, DM us back, or whatever that looks like. But, instead of asking for value, asking for something, sometimes it's better to give it. And then once they see that you're actually about it, then they'll be like, okay, I can see where you're coming from. I can see the work that you put in. Let's have this conversation.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. And I mean, I can't, and obviously this is a financial podcast, so we can't have this whole conversation without talking about finances, because you just spoke about, giving some things away. And how do you structure that into your business? Like when it comes to being a small business owner, right? Like that's one thing that's really important, is actually understanding like, well, I'm going to structure this, into my budget, and understand like I can't just be out there just tossing people things all day long. How do you go about balancing that? Like, do you have a team helping you with that part? Or I know that, like you said, that from the start, you wanted to do as much as that as possible, but how do you manage, finances and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, so now we kind of have a team around us. So my brother's actually an accountant.
Okay.
So he does all of our finances for us, and then
Mm-hmm.
we also have, a line of credit through a bank now, which is extremely beneficial for us. And I'm sure that you probably talked about credit on your
Mm-hmm.
podcast before. I mean, credit is king. I don't
Yep.
care what people say about cash. Credit is king. Um, but yeah, but kind of going back to the original question is, with whatever business it is, sometimes you do have to sacrifice at the beginning, and I don't want to say lose money, but not make as much as you typically would, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're an artist, maybe you do a few projects for free. If you're a videographer, maybe you shoot a couple of videos for free, so that you have a base of work, right? And now you can promote off of that. So for us, we had to give away, t-shirts and joggers and stuff, a lot more than we do now, right? Because now
Yep.
people would rather buy it because they understand what the quality is,
Mm-hmm.
and they understand you kind of, the vision behind what we're doing. But at the beginning, you can't expect people to think the way that you think unless you teach them to do that. And the way that you teach them is come out with these products that people really enjoy, get testimonials, get people to, start speaking about it, get some buzz around it. But the only way to do that, like we kind of talked about before, is DM, giving things out. I mean, you really just have to hustle. I mean, I feel like I don't want to use hustle too much, but that's such an important word
but
when
it
it
is
comes
what
to
it is. Yeah.
business. Yeah.
No, I love that. And how do you then come up with like things like pricing? Because the retail side of business is something that I've never really, looked that much into, I guess. And it's something that I'm not as familiar with. So I'm just really curious and interested at this point, is like, how do you come up with things like pricing? Because you said that you wanted to place yourself somewhere in the middle between, really high quality, but also affordable, um, and, yes, things that the everyday average person can wear. So how do you come up with that? How do you come up with those calculations? Is that also a team, or is that mainly you?
Yeah. So calculations, I mean, that's really just me.
Mhm.
So when we first started, literally all I did was I just found like the top 10 companies I thought resembled us in terms of quality the most, and I just undercut them by like $5 per whatever the product was. And that was really the way of going about it at first, because they gave us leverage. Okay, you really like this t-shirt from this company. Well, what
Mhm.
if you can basically get the same t-shirt for a little bit cheaper, right? So that was
Yeah.
kind of how we structured ourselves at first. Now it's a little bit more methodical, right? It's a percentage of what it is the cost to make it, right? And I think that's how most companies do it. So at the beginning of the year, we say, okay, we want to shoot for X amount of profit margin.
Mm.
So we kind of base everything off of that. But then that includes advertising, that includes shipping, right? So it does get a little bit more complicated, at least
Mm.
for us as we move along. But when we first started, it was really just undercutting our competitors, and then really the customer base will tell you, right? If you sell a shirt for $30 and everyone's buying it, well, then maybe you should raise your prices. But if
Yeah.
you are selling a shirt for $30 and no one's buying it, well, maybe it's just too
It's too
too
high.
too expensive for the
Right.
value that they perceive. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And if I were to ask you, like, what is the vision for Ghostfit? Like, I know that like outside of the business, you have some goals as well that I want to speak about, but for Ghostfit specifically, what is the long-term vision? Like, what are you looking to get accomplished? Like, you obviously spoke about wanting to be that affordable quality where, for not only businesses, but individuals. But in the long run, what do you want to do with this?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a few, discrete goals, and the first one is being the leader when it comes to corporate branding, right? I think that, like I said, there's that higher end, there's that lower end, but I think that there's something about one having really, really good products that you can sell as a corporation yourself, and two, working with someone that just really enjoys what they do, right? Obviously, I do care about making money. That's part of business.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once you start working with corporate, like you are a corporation yourself, business becomes, I don't know if jaded is the right word, but it's more just about numbers and really about love.
Yeah.
And I get it because you have so many employees, and right, so there's different things that comes, sacrifices with that. But one, that's my first one. Secondly, um, continue just to create apparel that people love. I think that may sound so obvious, but as you grow and as you expand as a business, I think it's easy to lose a sense of the reason why you started, because now you're starting to see success. I think that there are a few companies that I won't mention because they're still in business, but
Mm-hmm.
they started off making really good products, and then they kind of started getting, popular, and now the quality has gone down, right? And
Yeah.
it's just about pumping products out, getting their name out there, which obviously that's a way to do it. But for us, I want to continue to create high-end products. And
Mm-hmm.
three goes back to the root of, who we are as a company, and that's helping those that live with mental health issues. I
I love
personally
that.
have gone through anxiety, dealt with that for years. I think once you have it, I don't know if it ever just disappears, but the good thing about me is, I went through this during college, and I had a football team, I had coaches, I had family, I had friends to help me, during that time. And I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people aren't fortunate to be in those sort of situations. So we currently donate 5% back to Mental Health America, but continue to push our efforts in that, and help those people, and maybe not make it disappear, but hopefully mitigate it for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that. When I saw that as part of, something that you want to do and something that you really put not only like your actions, but your money where your mouth is, it just makes me appreciate the business so much more. And can you tell me, like, beyond, sorry, I had other questions, but that kind of caught me because it's something that's so important to me, in my opinion, and not talked about enough, is like, what mental health really is, and how to deal with it. And like you said, we had a lot of resources as athletes, but even for myself, I remember, leaving athletics, it was kind of like, okay, well, now go out and figure it out on your own. How did that become such a passion, out of all the things that are out there that I'm sure that you deal with as well? Why did that become such a passion for you?
I think the reason why is because when I first started Ghostfit, I was in really like the darkest part of my life. Like
Mm,
it was something that I didn't understand at the time, and maybe that's why it was so difficult for me. And so maybe I think it would be important for me to kind of recap that part, right?
yeah.
So you understand it. So, like I said, I grew up in a really small town in Chisago Lakes. And it was predominantly white. So I was always the odd kid out, the
Hmm.
only colored kid there. I was very poor compared to everyone else. And finally, when I started playing football, it gave me the persona of being like other people, right? Because now people want to talk to me. I was getting invited to the parties, right? Talking to girls, right? This and that, right? Things that I wouldn't have been afforded if I didn't play football, if I didn't stand out in that area. And what that did for me, unfortunately, was I played football for these other things.
For
I
all the
played
wrong
football to
reasons.
fit in. I played football to,
Where I
you
can so
know,
relate.
drink and like do all the things that I felt like as a high school kid was cool, right? And I
Hmm.
finally get to the University of Minnesota, and I still have that same mindset. And let me be clear that it's not like I didn't work hard at football. It's that my mind just wasn't right in the reasons why I was doing it. So I get to the University of Minnesota, and I think it's gonna be the same way. I'm partying and drinking and doing so much stupid stuff on the weekends, and during practice, I worked hard, but it wasn't 100%. I wasn't fully,
Hmm.
indebted into football, and especially, Drew, at the Division I level, if your head's not right, if
Yeah, you got to be 100% in it.
you're out, right? That's that.
Yep,
Even if you are 100%, you still probably, there's a good chance that you aren't going to get the playing time that you want or think
exactly.
that you
Yeah.
deserve. But anyways, so I ended up, quitting after my first year, and it really made me reflect and think about, like, why did I do this? Like, what was the purpose of football and all these promises that I made my friends and family about, going pro and this and that. And I had to
Mm.
look myself in the mirror, and I realized, like, I had one of the greatest opportunities to play at a Division I school, the school that I grew up watching my entire life. And I get there, and all I did was party and, barely even tried that hard in school. And so it made me reflect on everything that I did. And I had anxiety for 6 to 8 months, literally every single day. I ended up quitting all my classes, ended up dropping out. Like, it just wasn't a good time for me, right?
Hmm.
Because I didn't accept those reasons right away. And so finally, when I started Ghostfit, that was the one thing that got me out of the position I was in, because I finally could start focusing on something, and I could finally start working hard and putting my intentions towards an end goal. And that's really what football did for me. Football, it created a schedule and a plan that I could be dedicated to day in and day out. Um, and so when I talk about mental health, like, I don't want to say, I won't say Ghostfit saved me, but it did create a system again for me that allowed me to, one, help other people and help myself. And so I'm just so grateful for that. That I feel like if I can help other people, then it's my obligation to now.
Man, I absolutely love that, and I appreciate the transparency and the openness here, because there's so many things in there that I can relate to, and I think that for a lot of people that don't see this side of athletics, often what we see in athletics is the superstar, the main player, and things of that nature, but we don't realize every single person there is also a human being, right? Like there's more to that, to just a football player. And so often we hear about these players that you hear about them one day and then they kind of disappear off the face of the earth, and you're like, well, what happened to this individual? And these are the stories that happen to everyday people. So I remember, I can only think about the pressure that you're facing, like, and I can relate, obviously coming from Canada, but I remember being on campus at Minnesota, and every single time I would talk to anyone and they tell me, like, oh, I'm from Chisago Lake. I'm like, oh, do you know Josh Parks? Everybody knew Josh Parks. So I can only imagine, the kind of person that you were coming in, and everyone has that, no matter how you come into the school, right? Like, I came in as kind of like, oh, well, just an added player. Let's see if we can develop this kid. But from my community, from where I'm from, you're the chosen one, right? Like, you're going there, we're expecting some big things out of you, like not knowing that there's some 5-star 4-star kids that are coming there or whatever. We don't need to get into football lingo, and that's a lot of pressure for like a 17-18-year-old kid that's just trying to figure everything out. And when that gets stripped away, like you said, it's hard to figure out like who you are. And I think that it's important, like when you start a business and we start these things, like the why is almost so much more important than the what you do. Like, it's great to have great products, it's great to have all these great intentions, but to have the why behind it, of like wanting to impact and wanting to have a positive impact, is almost crucial. But man, I didn't plan to go that direction, but man, I appreciate you sharing that. But let's get to the juicy stuff. Like, one thing I pride myself, and you guys hear this every single episode, is shamelessly plugging and selling a bunch of things to my listeners. Even though I do want people to save their money, I do like them. If you're gonna spend money anywhere, spend it on my on my guests on the podcast. So Josh, tell us, where can people find you? What do you have to sell? All the good things. Shamelessly plug all your stuff.
Of course, man. This is one of my favorite segments of the podcast.
We're finally here.
Yeah. So our website is ghostfitapparel.com. We're on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, all that, at Ghostfit Clothing. And man, so we're seasonal. We have joggers, we have hoodies, we have quarter zips, t-shirts. In the springtime we have shirts. We
need to bring the sleeveless hoodie back. I couldn't find my size.
Hoodie, yeah.
We need it back. I was looking for, there's only a couple sizes left, and it was on sale too, and I was looking for it. I was like, no. So we need it back.
We still have 3 weeks till Christmas. So if y'all haven't found a Christmas gift for whoever you're looking for, like myself, because I'm last minute as well, go ahead and go to ghostfitapparel.com. Appreciate
it. Definitely, man. You heard the man. Man, this was such a great conversation. Through all the audio issues, I just realized that my light just went off. The camera went off. I forgot to record, but we got through it, and we are so thankful. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Really looking forward to sharing this conversation with everybody. It's going to be amazing. But for today, guys, we're going to log off. So make sure that you do subscribe to the podcast, whether it's on one of the podcasting platform or on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube, because I put a lot of work into this, and I would really appreciate it. And so that's all I'm going to say. And thank you very much. Outside of that, you can always make sure to check me out at 1percenterjuju.com. Make sure to book your 15-minute free consultation there. But as always, forgot to mention, also follow us on social. I love connecting with you guys on social. There's a lot of information I shared. I'll share a lot more than I do share on these platforms. So all the links are in the description, and Josh's information is going to be in the description today. But as always, for today, make sure that you're taking the steps today to ensure that you're 1% closer to your goal than you were yesterday. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Josh, for joining us. Have a great day.